Oh, there you are. I was hoping you'd make it. Come in, sit down. Welcome to the Story Well. If you've found your way here, then here is where you belong. And joining us at the table once again is Christopher Soucy. Welcome back to the Story Well.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so pleased you came back. I had such a fun time with you as we delved into Sherwood Forest.
Yes, absolutely, and the product was amazing. Well done on following through on a bunch of idle lip service.
Yeah, well, I know it was one of those things where we finished the thing, and I was like, God, that was a great episode. I mean, obviously, I love talking to you, anyways. But it was like, that idea wouldn't let me go.
Yeah.
And I would wake up and I would have like another scene. I'm like, oh, that would be good in there too. And I just couldn't stop. And so I ended up I had to get it out. So I had to like write it up. So hopefully it'll be, I'm working on the second draft now. So I think it might actually be a real play. So thank you very much for, helping me, create something out of nothing.
It's great because it also has like all of the elements that you want in a producible community regional sense, in the sense of, size of cast and, number of roles. Because, a lot of like the professional theaters are shying away from the larger casts and shying away from these things. But these, LORT theaters need things that kind of put butts in seats and give, people something to do. And I love what you've done. And I was like, I could see people really wanting to produce this. On that level of, let's get a bunch of people on stage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, part of it is from my time in youth theater, which is
yes,
as many people as you possibly can. Like that's the mandate for youth theater is like,
and people don't appreciate
as many crowd scenes as possible because everybody wants to have their kid on the stage, even if it's like, you're a munchkin, you're a pirate, you're whatever.
You're right. No one appreciates how brilliant a marketing plan that is to ensure that there will be sold out, performances, because every kid has parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents and two sets of grandparents. And, it goes on and on. So, it's brilliant to get these big shows that you put a lot of people on stage and people just, you give a kid one line and those parents are like, my kid's a genius,
Yeah. I've had so many times where I've done something and they're like, okay, you've got 3 of the Morlocks. Can there be 5?
Right. Yes.
Like, sure. Yeah. And same thing, you have to suddenly and take one line from your character and then give it to just one so that kid gets a line, And so that's always sort of in my thought process too. But then the other side is for professional, like the big time stuff, like, no, keep it small, keep it tight. And it's like, I guess one of the philosophies I'm sort of working on now as I'm writing stuff is, so you have like in film, you have like your independent film. So it's like, whoever, like, as I know you've shot some, like it's whoever you can get, like it's your friends, it's,
absolutely.
So it's always small stuff. And then you've got your Marvel, you've got your giant, packing people. And like, when we were coming up, there was that indie thing. There was like that thing in the middle, like the sort of the $40 million, romantic comedies were right in there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Ace Venturas were right in there. Like that's the thing. And I'm like trying to do that with plays because I feel like there's a middle ground that's no one's really touching.
And it's true because people grossly understand. And I've run into this so much. I actually wrote a play that had 7 characters in it. And I was told that's too many people.
Wow.
And I was like, with 7? And so I like ended up fusing 2 characters together. And I was like, okay, it's weird, because each character kind of identified in a way. And now I fused 2 characters together just to get the story to the end. Yeah. I was like, this is weird. Are you sure 7 is too many? And, so like I've been writing a lot of like 3 character plays and 5 character plays because there are a lot of places that just have these character limits. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So every now and then I lose my brain and I'm like, this is a 50-person play. I want 2 armies on stage fighting, because I need to tell a story that isn't three people in a cabin talking about their feelings. I'm going to.
It's like all they want is waiting for Godot.
Right.
You know what? People are in Hamlet. Like there are
exactly.
There are famous characters that have like 4 lines. Like, come on.
And even then, because having produced Shakespeare for the last for 5 years in the teens, we usually capped out at about 20. Like we can maintain about 20 people. And it usually was around 17 to 20 people. We start off, we cast up to 30 because those are the roles. But when you're doing this type of theater at the level that we're doing, community level theater, people just drop off and they flake out or things come up, their lives, come up. And I was like, this is amazing because no matter what show we do, it seems to fall into that 70 to 20 characters when we're doing Shakespeare. It's like, because you have these diehards who do it because it's Shakespeare. And then you have these people who are there because it's an interesting experience or they're friends or things of that nature. And it's like, we can't break that 17 to 20 barrier though, because try as we might.
Yeah. I see a lot of theater, not as much as I'd like to, obviously, because it's expensive,
right?
Especially when you're a struggling playwright and no one's buying your plays. But it's such a weird thing because I see a limited amount of plays and I don't like most of them.
It's so difficult these days.
Exactly. It's like how much time you have and then what's being produced. That's part of the problem too. And it just seems like, especially in the world of plays, the only plays people want to do are like you were talking about, people in the cabin discussing their feelings and something terrible has happened to one of them and they're going to relate that terrible thing.
And we're going to peel away the layers for 3 hours.
So it's like you have musicals or that.
Right.
And it's like, so that's, I'm trying to write something that's in the middle. So it's like, I feel like sometimes I'm all on my own because I'm like, no one else is trying to do this, which also means no one's really looking for this.
Right. And I think that, because of course there's a cost, breakdown and the more people you put on stage, the more the budget is just in costuming alone, just in, maintaining, everything. But I feel that without straight plays that have some theatricality to them, it's like, what happened to plays that when you sat in the audience, you're looking at the stage and you're like, this is overwhelming. This is amazing. And I've seen people do True West where the set was so overproduced, but it was beautiful and drew you in and you're just awestruck by it. And I think that there's like this weird minimalist idea that has reared its head. And I think a lot of people have been fooled into thinking it's art. It's the art of it, but I think it's the business of it that has caused the minimalist movement. I don't think it's because people's visions have become minimalist. It's because people's pockets, the producers do not want to pay for the giant set. They don't want to pay for the lavish costuming. They don't want the period piece. They don't want these things. And so you find yourself watching these shows that all have this familiar flavor of, well, this takes place in the 1800s, but everyone's dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, and you have that kind of notion that what's actually happening is somebody somewhere along the way said, we can't afford 1800s clothes. It's like, don't worry, it's in the mind.
Yeah, right. I mean, I play D&D. I'm a big fan of theater of the mind. Like,
sure, absolutely.
I'm here in the theater. I know that there's the older gentleman next to me who won't stop coughing. Like but I'm still trying to do my best to do it. But meet me halfway. Like,
bring back the magic.
I'm willing to go along with it. I'm willing to break the fourth wall, but at the same time, like, you got to put the fourth little effort as well.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with a well-developed 3 walls. It's like, there's nothing wrong with just a beautifully rendered physical space that both the audience and the actors get to interact with in a way that isn't straining the imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's part of it also is that no one seems to want to do, or at least I say this from my experience here in Phoenix, in the Valley, no one wants to produce comedies.
It's the weirdest thing. There's so much.
Are you finding that?
Yes, absolutely. I am lucky enough to have partnered up with a theater in the Hudson Valley in New York, where the artistic director is a absurdist. He loves absurdity and he loves absurdist things. So he always seems to gravitate towards the comedy, which is so refreshing because like farce and comedy seems to have gone out of vogue because and that too it seems to be a notion that maybe people are expecting art to save society.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've missed a lot of boats here. There's a lot more work than putting on a mind expanding play or addressing every issue there is with our art. People kind of forgot that art is an all encompassing expression.
Right.
That we can't just use it to bludgeon people over the head with issues.
Yes.
And that's,
I heard expression from a different, not in the same context, but I thought it applied, which is traumatourism.
Yes. Traumatourism. That's very, and that's just it. We are faced with tremendous amounts of inequity that need to be addressed. But if you make every trip to the theater a chore of emotional, anguish, it's like there should be joy and there should be celebration and there should be laughter and we should be enjoying these outings. I don't want to be angry at the end of every show I go to. I don't want to be, outraged at the condition of society because, I watched a show that pointed out all of this, inequity. Not to downplay it or say that it's not important because it absolutely is. And God love everyone who is actively, bringing awareness. But it almost seems like,
that's all there is. People
are looking down on entertainment. People are looking down on whimsy or fantasy. They're suggesting that there's no room for expressing joy or expressing a wry sense of what's going on. It all has to be deadly serious, and it all has to deal. Because even the comedies, if they're not satires or they're not biting commentaries of what's going on, they don't get much play.
Yeah. I mean, even I would say I can't remember the last time I saw even someone do a Neil Simon play.
Yeah. And there you have this interesting wheel that turns around, which is there were those plays that you kind of knew that you would see. You knew you would see an odd couple, and maybe they'd be gender bent odd couple, but you knew you would see it, and you knew that you would see, Last of the Red Hot Lovers. You knew that you would see,
Laugh on the 23rd Floor, and
Prelude to a Kiss, and
or Biloxi Blues.
Biloxi Blues, even absolutely
would come around. It was like a cycle, and now we have
even like
so far cycled away that
we've cycled away so far that we don't even see the more cutting edge comedies like Christopher Durang is not being produced. There's not as much of that. Let's please the audience because too many mission statements include words like awareness and include words like socially responsible, and they include these words again. Not knocking those things. Those things are very important.
Right, exactly. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist.
No, not and even more so, they are essential. But
you build your season of like 6 shows. They don't all have to be that.
Right. Although there is like a rush. Like all my friends all around the country seem to be watching some version of Little Shop of Horrors, and I find that very enjoyable to see pictures of people, in a wide array of everything from school performances to regional performances to it's on off Broadway right now, and it's just like, that's funny because that's a zany, silly show with like this zany, silly premise, and it's so enjoyable, and I'm like, that's great, but it does fall into that musical category, which is what happened to the straight plays, what happened to those Neil Simon plays, what happened to those
indeed those things that are classified as comedy.
David Ives, we were just talking about All in the Timing,
right,
which is a great hilarious show, but it's not getting the kind of play that it used to.
I mean, I was so pleased when the Play That Goes Wrong, when the Mischief Company got big, and now and I got to see that in its tour, like it toured through across the country, I think once, like through America, because like once again, comedies on without singing, I don't understand. And it was probably I don't think I've ever laughed as hard at a play, like with a full, I mean, like 3,000 seat house that I was in, and like I was physically sore. I had laughed so hard.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to have something that is just
and I'm so
wild
pleased about
abandoned.
that.
Yeah, we friends of mine in Florence, South Carolina, just produced it, and I was like, it's such a good show because it lends itself to whatever your budgetary constraint is, because that just adds to the humor. You're just adding more to the funny if all the seams are visible, if all it does. It's great. Yeah.
I'm so, but I feel like right now they're the ones who are carrying the banner, and there's no one else.
And it's a British company, so
right, exactly. Like once again, the British invasion happens again. Come on, step up, American. All right, so we have railed against the state of the industry.
That was a successful tangent that does not address anything that we were going to address.
No, not at all. I even had a question for you. I'm just going to save it for next time you're here, because let's get in and let's see if we can do some make-em-ups.
Yeah,
so
make-em-ups.
Let's see if we can create a story here. All right, so let me pull up my tables. All right, so we're going to. Do you have a particular format in Trinity, or should we let the dice decide?
Let the dice decide.
All right, so we're going to roll this dice. Have been rolling a lot of fours. I've been warming it up. See what I get. I rolled a 4, of course. Because we're going to make a film.
Excellent.
So we talked about plays, so I guess it decided no. Maybe you need to make a movie.
Enough talking about plays. You've got too much going on.
Nobody cares about plays. Go watch a movie. All right, so we'll pick our first genre. We have rolled a 7, which is a mystery.
Oh.
Okay, so a mysterious movie.
Absolutely.
And our second is dice is still rolling. Oh, there it goes. Not stopped. It is it's a crime caper.
Mystery crime caper.
So a mystery and a crime caper. So somehow heisty sort of thing about that.
Well, I just love the word caper when it comes down to it.
I like that because it adds a little bit of the comedic thing of it too.
Right. It suggests that it is it's to me, a caper is always an attempt. It's not necessarily, a question of success, because a good heist movie is all of this planning coming together and locking into place. But a caper carries with it like this sort of whimsical notion that, everything that goes wrong will go wrong. And, it's a crime caper.
Okay. All right. So then our plot then for our film crime caper mystery is an expert wants to improve the reputation of a harsh coach, but they will have to abandon an important duty.
Interesting. So, I mean, right off the bat, what I feel...
Yeah. What's jumping out at you?
Jumps out at me is the classic detective story.
Okay.
Where you have a detective who is running smoothly in whatever industry, whether it is a private detective or a police detective, an actual, official police detective. And his mentor his or her mentor, is sort of an aging out, phasing out, former glory kind of character, who everyone assumes, needs to be put out to pasture, doesn't have what it takes. And so this detective, still wanting the both the approval of the mentor and to prove to everyone that the mentor is still a viable resource. I could see there being a sort of forcing the older detective to take up a case, but I like the idea of the older detective being, not having an interest in it, not wanting to do this. Like, I'm retiring, I'm okay, I don't have all the skills that I used to have. Yeah. And the younger detective is like, of course you do. You're just as sharp as ever. He's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly I have, I'm not what I used to be.
Right.
I was trying to think of detective stuff too. I'm like, there's been so many, sort of typical, crime saga, that kind of stuff. I was like, what's a different way of doing this? And the term that popped into my head was corporate espionage. So what if we had that the coach that was the detective, he was the mentor of this guy, but this guy essentially, in his mind, sold out. So our expert decided to go corporate rather than be a police officer, like the noble profession of transit murderers. Instead, you're doing investigation of people who corporate executives who are
embezzling
unfaithful to their wives or something like that. You're doing all this deep background stuff, and so it sees them as sold out. So that was the break between the two of them. So now there's some kind of a case, whatever, that pulls them back in, but he is now out of that world. So it has to be something that sort of overlaps so that his skills sort of he can maneuver through rich people. He knows how to maneuver in that space, and his former coach / mentor doesn't. So he can't move in high society, but he can. So then you have a lot of the culture clash.
There's something
going into these places.
There's something cool in that notion of the mentor character being straight out of a old film noir, tough guy, fedora wearing, fist swinging.
He's Sipowicz from NYPD Blue.
He's a whiskey drinking guy.
Yeah, Stacy Keach,
That Stacy Keach character. Absolutely. I think that is really a cool idea. Is that
putting in the Society of Manners kind of thing, where it's it's
right,
and even tech bro stuff, where it's sort of everybody's around. They're all wearing ironic T-shirts, but all the T-shirts cost $200.
Right, exactly. Well, and that makes for the quote unquote sellout notion of this person who's fitting into a a 9 to 5, only has to do, all of his investigations, or their investigations are done, on computer, and, there's no leg work. So, which makes it if you create a crime that is physical in this virtual world, where it's who steals things physically anymore? We hack, and we, so this detective is basically a hyper IT personality, but his old mentor, who hates him because he went, he's a cubicle, geek, and he
sold out to big money
and drives the flashy car and does all this stuff. And then it turns out that something physical was stolen, but the physical thing can't be, they can't tell the police, because maybe the physical thing is like a cryptocurrency key or something like that, some kind of device
supposed to have.
Right. Some device that might fake a cryptocurrency or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's if we don't get this device, we're on the line for the money that we're pretending to make with the cryptocurrency. So there's, I think there's room to make a lot of little jabs at, modern finance and stuff. And in comes this gruff trench coat wearing guy who comes in. He's like, all right, what was taken? It's like, well, there's a thumb drive. A what? Thumb drive.
Yeah. It would, there's a big market right now for like old tech. So it'd be interesting if this was because there's a canceled check by Steve Jobs just sold for like, the idea of like a first iPhone or a first iPod, that kind of thing, an old piece of like that has code on it that proves it. So for the detective, it's like, oh yeah, we got to get the MacGuffin back. We got to get the thing.
So the MacGuffin,
no, the point's not the thing. The point is on there is like the whatever original piece of code that was created that started this whole empire, and maybe there's like a dispute between who's the real mentor, like who the real founder of a company was.
So to hit on the hot button topic,
Glass Onion, finding the paper, but this time it's actually a piece of tech.
But that piece of tech can be AI.
Oh.
So now, you're adding this new layer of the idea of who originated this AI. Well, here's the base code.
Right. Oh,
and it's being kept here. And, the person who has the base code for this, basically owns the only copyright to this, software. Yeah. And so
you could have a conversation with this thing, but it was like, it ran on like it was like it filled a room full of computers.
Right. Exactly. Like all these big gigantic things. And
tape drives. It's like Captain America Winter Soldier. Like it's like like you're standing in my brain. Like that's the idea that this super popular sort of, we don't even have to do the dark side of AI thing. Like even just be like, this is everyone uses it, but this is the grandfather.
And I think that's just it is like every AI system, every single one of them is using this strain of code, and the person who owns that strain of code can cash in against all of the different AI that's going on. They can actually, they actually have sway because they have physical ownership. And that's what this thing is. It's like, if you physically have this, it's proof that you own it. So, there's something there. And I don't know how that would work out, but I do like the idea of it being something high tech, but they keep it physical for a reason.
Right.
And it's like,
it's the air gap. Like it can't touch the web because they don't want anyone to find out it's something. So yeah, it is literally. And then, that's why they keep it on the whole thing, because you'd have to get all the adapters. So like if we go for the iPhone analogy, like it's running on the 30 pin, like it's running on the big cord that nobody uses anymore.
Absolutely.
So you'd have to do all these adapters in order to get it to that point. So, that's really good. Yeah.
It adds that kind of like cutting edge right now storyline. And then you have this, bare-fisted, whiskey drinking detective
doesn't even carry a smartphone,
right? Because
flip phone,
it only comes to this point where it's like, well, they must have hired actual criminals to do this,
right?
Yeah, it's not a hack because there was nothing to hack. This was a physical object, so somebody put together a team, and now the detective's like, oh, they put together a team. Well, let's see what they did. It's like, they got through the door, so they needed somebody who could, jimmy a lock or da-da-da-da. It's like, this isn't a lock you jimmy. He's like, every lock is a lock you jimmy. You just got to that kind of.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be really good. Yeah. Because our expert is thinking of like, no, they have to have hacked in and they have to have, change the biometrics then he just goes and like pulls it and they put a piece of duct tape along the side.
Right. Exactly.
That it wouldn't seal. It's like, no. Right. No. So you have that old school, new school sort of like, it all comes down to greed, kid,
Yeah. It always comes down to greed.
Yeah. So that could be that we have, let's say that, two people are fighting over who really is the creator of this company. And because one hires a crew to break in and steal a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Doesn't care about all the rest of it, but they unfortunately
this one thing, right?
they kept the one thing that he wanted, and so now it becomes like this, like, I can't go to the police and say this because but we need to get that. That's the most important thing. And you can have that person be like more sympathetic because it's like, I couldn't find any other way to do it. This is the way I figured out how to do it. Like, I'm in the right. but I did a bad thing to get there, and now things have gotten so much worse, and so that's when we have our two sort of main characters get pulled into this mess. Could be even warring siblings. That would be interesting too. Like
warring siblings, or
succession vibe,
parental figure and child.
Yeah,
because that's another thing.
We could parallel the sort of the older younger if we have it
exactly.
Yeah, parent and child. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, so then is the caper going to be just that happen, or at some point are they going to have to do their own caper to get this thing?
I think if we make it so that the item and that's figuring out the significance of the item.
Yes.
And knowing that you can't actually tell the authorities about it. So you have to figure out what is keeping the authorities out of it. And then when you figure out where it is, then you basically have to go, well, how do we get it back? It's like, the only way you get it back is the way you lost it. You got to get a team.
That's right. Oh, that's really good.
And then it becomes
put together to steal from the criminals.
Right.
Oh, that's really good.
The difference being, from the detective point of view, he could go to all of his friends who are law enforcement or who are on the side, who help solve cases.
Yes. Or newly retired.
Yeah. Newly retired is like, hey, you were the best guy. You chased down, all these, bank robbers and stuff like that. We got a job.
We got downsizing of the department. So now there's all these angry ex-cops out there.
Right. And so now it's like this rogues gallery of guys who used to bust criminals.
Yeah.
Doing the crime because they know how to get away with it.
Yeah.
Because
it'd be interesting to have all these people who have been criminals on like Miami Vice, like those guys, like you're calling them, trying to like catch them up to 21st century of it, like in the same kind of thing. No, it's like you kick down a door. It's the same. It doesn't matter if it's an electronic door or not. Like you're still kicking down a door.
Yeah, it's like the lock doesn't care when a foot goes through it.
Right. That's really good.
And that could be even the best part of it is that the criminals steal the thing and then they rely on all this crazy high tech stuff because they're not expecting someone to show up with like a battering ram and just busting through the drywall to get into the building.
Oh, that's really good because you could have it be a rival investigator. So like, let's say that if we're on the side of the kid, that the father has hired like an elite team of hackers or whatever. Like they're all very 21st century using drones and all this kind of stuff. And they're on
IR lights and lasers.
Yeah, exactly. And like, the green lasers on the so we have them as running parallel, like they're trying to do all their high set while they're doing the absolute old school, like passing notes kind of level of stuff too. So you have like the new school, old school.
I love this idea of like this crazy laser grid and this crazy thing all set up. And this beautiful thing is like, how are we going to do it? And he makes like a model of it.
Yeah.
And he's got like strings and everything. And the older, detective or guy who's going to take care of it says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Like, how are you going to do this? This is, biometrically sealed, blah, blah, blah. A guy shows up and he's like, cuts into the wall and then just like cuts the power cord. And he's like, lasers don't work without electricity. You unplug it.
I was thinking the same thing, except just slightly to the left. We do the whole montage of them going through and like, here's what the planet is, and they have we do digital walls and stuff too, and then like you see outside just one of the other guys just sort of like casually going through and then takes a baseball bat to the transformer outside. Boom. And they're all in darkness and they can't do anything. Meanwhile the other guys like are handwriting and using like the salt with a flashlight in his mouth, using like crayons on the top of a table to like draw all the stuff out. I like that because it's not, we're not necessarily trying to be anti-technology. It's more about
well, I even like the idea of it's hubris, the hubris of people who have technology, because I love the idea of them being like, even if the power grid goes down, we have this backup generator, and even if the backup generator goes down, we've got these batteries, and even if these batteries go down, we have this thing. And it's like, but they all go through this one cord. There's a 6-foot length of cord that goes from all those different things to the device you want to run.
Right.
Cut it. We cut that cord.
And right next to the cord are the sprinklers. When water meets electricity, it doesn't matter how smart it is. Yeah.
I just like the idea of, it's not that the technology is faulty, it's that people's confidence in it doesn't allow for, because they're thinking of, that biometric, the password changes every 5 minutes, and they go on and on and on. And, the guy's like, we blew a hole in the wall.
I was at my job. My boss was she is in her 30s, and she was going on a cruise for the very first time. She'd never been on it before. Nor have I. But it sort of got to the point where she was, getting ready to leave, and I was like, okay, so what are you bringing to entertain yourself? And she was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're going to be on the ocean. Like, there's no internet. Like, you can't stream a movie. You can't. What are you bringing? And the thought had never occurred to her. I was like, you should download some stuff. Like, you should go tonight.
Before you go, download.
Right. Whatever, I don't even trust Netflix to download stuff, because all that stuff is there. Like, you need to bring a book. Like, you need to bring
books.
You need to physically, it never occurred to us. It's that same thing. It's like with our guys here, they're so enamored, like they're so wrapped up in this that they can't even see that there are other ways. And I think that we're going to see that with our expert too.
I think that
too, and then sort of break down to like,
he'll always have that answer that's tech savvy. Yeah. And there'll always be like look, it comes down to certain things. It's like, this is, uses a algorithm, and it downloads, stuff. And it's like, we knock out the cell tower, and there's no, Wi-Fi to this building,
it's like trying to hack into their DoorDash order. It's just like, go to the restaurant. Like, it still have to be delivered. Like, you go and you talk to the cook.
Right. I think that would be a perfect moment in there, is where the guy's like trying to and he's like trying to figure it out, trying to get food to the group. Yeah. And finally, like, one of them just stands up, walks out the door, comes back like 5 minutes later with 5 bags of food. He's like, it's right across the street.
Or even just that. I love the idea of them, like the group of young people sitting around, and then they're all arguing about things, and they're trying to figure out how to divide up in the app, and the guy picks up the phone and calls the restaurant and orders, and all of them are looking at him in horror, like, no, I just called and told them what I wanted. And now
they have a phone number.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. All right, so I guess what do you think our big sort of epic finale would be then? Like, is like a dual heist, like they're both trying to get into the same place at the same time, or you think like a switcheroo?
I like the idea of the thing that sets it in motion is a group of criminals steal something. Mm-hmm. Then they have to investigate to find out who those criminals are, and then they have to get the item, whatever it is. So
that feels like our midpoint act. That's just like our act 2 sort of action scene.
I think it is the act 2. Well, actually, it's nearing into the climax, because the concept is, will they, won't they, can they, or can't they? Is the old school going to take over the new school? Whatever you kind of work at it, but then it has to come to that twist. Like, what is the twist?
Yeah.
And in a weird sort of way, I wonder if the twist shouldn't be, let's all meet back, we'll get the whatever it is. We'll all meet back. And the old detective and his old man crew take the device and sell it, and don't meet the young kid.
Oh.
So the young kid is now, and so then you have like
the denouement. I know they're running late. They'll be here any minute,
and so there's security fraud. He's now everything's busted wide open. They left all this evidence that makes him out to be the person who stole it in the first place, like from the original. And so he is just in all of this trouble. And then the question is, do we take the success sweep where the old guys are in the Bahamas or whatever they're on their ship, and we get the turn where the young kid actually pulls off one good the ideal way to do that is like having them in a resort. Try to pay for something, and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, this card isn't reading. And he's like, what? And it's like, yeah, do you have another card? It's like, yeah, sure. No, this card isn't reading either. And basically finding out that they got away, but the young kid just like technologically destroyed them, took all their money. They go and they find that there's no money in their bank account.
Right.
And then, and then the final scene is, the kid in like Switzerland with,
with computer monitors all around.
With computer monitors everywhere. And, code red, Mountain Dew, or, it's like just sitting there and he like texts the main guy and, the old coach.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
thanks
for liquidating that item for me.
Oh yeah, I was also we actually at some point should have that like no, they do everything in cash. They have like bags full of cash, and then we could have like him like have a courier service go and like pick up all the things. So like you see them like as they're at the front desk. There's like just a guy like a FedEx jacket or whatever, just walking out with the red briefcases or whatever.
Right. Sure.
And so so he has those as well. And then as they're all sitting on the curb, then we there's a phone call for so
Mickey Spillane.
He has to go pick up like a landline. Right. And that's how they get the information that he has done this to them.
And that's the final, coup de grace of, I could never have liquidated it on my own. I don't know who to sell to. And, I never would have been able to get cash for it. And,
it's like, and you're right, those guys, but that whole situation was terrible. And so thank you for getting me out of it, because now I don't have to work for those guys again.
Exactly. They don't trust me at all. They don't want me anywhere near the place.
That's right. That's right. You've made it. So I had to retire early. So thank you for that. Okay. Oh, I like that. I really like that a lot. So do you want to do you have any thoughts about characters you want to do, or should we talk about actors and then do it that way?
A lot of times figuring out the actor helps solidify things,
Okay.
Because we can start with, do we want the young character to be a male or a female?
Right.
And I'm kind of fine with either, and I'm almost leaning towards female at this point.
Yeah. In another episode, we were talking about something, and Anna Kendrick came up, and she was wrong for that one. But now I feel like she'd be really good for this.
She would be, and
because you need somebody in about her age range. You can't have somebody. You can't do a Sydney Sweeney where they're in their 20s.
No, the idea can't be in their 20s. It has to be an established person who was mentored by this older person, but also established in the business.
Yes.
It has to be somebody that that is doing the job and has some credibility in the job.
Right. And seems competent in it.
Right. And so, I could see, Anna Kendrick would be great because she's got that great comic timing, and she also can turn fierce.
And she can play really smart.
She can play very smart, and she can play very mean. She could actually turn the mean on when she needs to. Yeah. So I think that is a good choice. Bringing us to the older
Yeah.
gruff
or mentor.
mentorment.
Yeah. Do you think a woman as well, or do you think this we need to have like the gruff veteran guy?
I'm thinking that the guy, I think playing to all the tropes with him, with that character.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because a lot of the older actors in my brain are older from a long time ago.
Then. Yeah.
And so now I'm like, now I have to think of well,
that's the problem. Is like right now,
who's of the age range now?
George Clooney would be great age range, but he's not.
George Clooney would be great. He's not the right person for it, but in like, that age range,
like a Russell Crowe type. I don't think Russell Crowe would be great there because he seems like a man out of time, which is kind of what we need. We need someone who's not current, and like Brad Pitt wouldn't do this because he's too cool at this point. But we need somebody who's a little bit out of sync with it.
Russell Crowe isn't a bad call.
No, okay,
I don't think so because Russell Crowe, as he is right now,
yes.
he's certainly not in the shape that he used to be in.
Nope, he's not. He's far not a gladiator anymore.
He's far more gruff than he ever was. And when you think of him as the 20 plus years later character he played in LA Confidential.
Yes. Yeah.
And you take him into that constant.
Wasn't that him in Gosling?
Oh, and the other guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that right?
That character is very close to what we want.
Yeah.
And so I think he might be the right guy.
And he seems like he could run a crew.
He could run a crew. Absolutely. Because, in a weird way, I'm kind of sold on Russell Crowe.
Okay.
Because he could run a crew. He has that kind of, super gruff ability.
Yeah. Gravitas. He's got that.
Gravitas. He's got a lot of gravitas. Makes me think of Gerard Butler too.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
But I still think that maybe Russell Crowe is a little more unhinged.
Yes. However, I can see if we're gonna sort of do an all-star or like an all-star sort of character actor ensemble for his crew.
Yes, that's true.
Gerard Butler would be really fun in that, like as opposed to trying to go the Expendables route of like trying to find action heroes.
No, you definitely
like really interesting character actors,
right? Steve Buscemi,
just to show up for a week,
right? Exactly. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that would be fun. So then we have our sort of not exactly villains, but sort of our father and child tech gurus who are fighting with each other. It seems like it's like the father-son thing seems to play really well at this point.
Yes, and because they're tech gurus, I think that you can play it with that kind of loosey-goosey, hippy-dippy kind of, where like a Steve Jobs, like, never wears a suit kind of, of person. So, the father being like a father of technology. I was there when Windows came. I was there when Apple, was born.
Right. Yeah. Like I've stood on yachts next to Steve Wozniak and gave him tips and
that makes the child, definitely that annoying, premillennial, post-zennial, that weird,
because there's no one sort of at his level who's doing anything interesting. So like he's younger than Zuckerberg and all those guys.
Right, exactly.
At his point, they're like everyone are terrible. Like they're all tech bros and people who are going to prison.
So what could that?
Hiding them.
The parent could be a woman.
That could be.
Which puts it in an interesting light because there are no women tech bros of that period, and to think that she could be calling on the fact that she was the woman behind jobs and gates, and while they were taking in the sunshine, I was coding. I was in the back. And I built my empire without my face on the cover of magazines. I made my billions
It was like
without anyone knowing my name.
I was doing the real work while
I was doing the real work. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, while they're making speeches to board rooms, I'm doing that. So we definitely have that.
Who are you thinking? Because they don't have to have that CEO feel. Like my first thought was Sharon Stone.
And it's funny because my first thought was Helen Hunt.
Oh, Helen Hunt is really good. I started at Sharon Stone and I ended up at Gina Davis, but Helen Hunt
Gina
is
Davis
really
wouldn't be
good.
Bad. Yeah, I think Helen Hunt has this kind of down to earth notion because both Sharon Stone and Gina Davis definitely fits a profile of like power woman.
Yeah, she was the president.
She's the president. So there's something there. Which also makes Tio Leone a good pick as well. Yeah, but I think that there's something about Helen Hunt that also doesn't necessarily carry an edge. Like she can pull out an edge, almost a Jodie Foster quality. Yeah. This sort of you see maternal in her, but she absolutely could turn on.
Yeah, she has a spine of steel.
Right. Yes. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Helen Hunt's really good.
Which brings in like the punk kid.
Right.
And
this is probably, I think we're going to have trouble with this because we need somebody in their 20s and like, I don't know any actors. It's like, if it's not Timothée Chalamet, I don't know.
Well, the first name that popped into my head was Tom Holland.
Oh.
Giving him
fun.
a dumb
hoodie.
Yeah, yes, exactly. In a hoodie, kind of the himbo, he's not very smart, not very, ambitious.
Always cleaning his sneakers.
Always cleaning his sneakers, always like making a deal for the next kicks, I think that character.
That's pretty good.
Would be an interesting play.
Yeah.
Because we keep seeing him in these strangely tough guy characters, which is weird. Like, he's no Nathan Drake. I don't know what they were thinking.
I know. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, I know. But it would be an interesting take because he'd also be a villain.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we've really seen him do.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of Tom Holland in that thing, having a full on tantrum.
Yes.
And just not even knowing how to break stuff. Like, I mean, just.
Oh, sure. She's like pushing things over and then it just like fall down and
and it's like it's like it was a basketball that he got that's sealed in lucite and she just shoves over and it just like it just clunks on its side. It's like you can't break it because it's like
it's like that's bulletproof.
It loses the value if you open it up.
It's like Michael Jordan signed that.
That's really good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really solid cast. I would love to see all those things. Okay, so then that's our second. Our most difficult question then. What do we call it? I feel like I don't want to. I feel like putting artificial or intelligence in it doesn't really go where we want to do. Obsolete is a fun word. I like that.
I like obsolete a lot, and I wonder.
Obsolete
because that kind of also feels that Control-Alt-Delete notion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are simple hack terms?
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something. Yeah. I'm trying to think if we should go for old school with.
Yeah. Well, I was like, is there a crossover?
Yeah.
Between like old school and high tech.
Yeah. If you do like The Network makes it sound like a 90s thriller, like The Net or something.
What about like biometric?
Okay.
Biometric lock or something that, when I'm trying to think of like what are the computer era catchphrase things for security.
Yeah. crackers, white hats, black hats.
Right.
White hat, black hat is interesting.
White hat, black hat. Although I think there was a black hat, wasn't there?
Was there? Yeah, I think there was.
With Chris Helmsworth.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford, isn't that one? I don't think I ever saw it.
I think so. Yes, I think that's right. Yeah. Encryption.
Okay.
Decryption.
Yeah, decrypt. Crypt is interesting because having crypt in there because like they're old men.
What about gone fishing? Phishing. Gone fishing.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, because you have like the old men have gone fishing, and then you have
right.
I think
that might be it.
That's because that's new school and old school combining.
Right. It definitely has.
Yeah, and fish in like with the.
Oh yeah, that's right. With the apostrophe, gone fishing. Not fishing.
I think that's our winner. Okay, so our action thriller of old school meets the new school, gone fishing.
And with that, because fishing is has a lot to do with like getting encrypted information, like off of credit cards and things like that.
Yeah,
that could be our MacGuffin too. Is this is a proprietary security stuff that they keep, that they don't let onto the web, that no one can hack into like remotely, that actually is in the base code of every credit card reader.
Oh, wow.
And anybody who has this can actually access any network credit card machine and get all the information. Get all of the credit card information and literally with one stroke of the button
on that original program,
right? Because this one bit is sort of a backdoor, and it was an engineered backdoor, so it was that's why they can't tell the cops, is because if they found it, they basically find that this company planned a way to rob billions upon billions of dollars, and I think there's even like room to have that villain speech where it's like, I never wanted to use it. I just wanted to prove I could do it. That kind of like, the point wasn't I could make all the money in the world. The point was I could make the thing that would make all the money in the world.
That's really good. Yeah.
That kind of notion where she's like
Helen Hunt. Yeah.
The Helen Hunt speech is basically saying, I didn't do this so I could steal. I did this to prove that I'm better than everyone else. That kind of thing.
Right. For all those guys who wouldn't let me into their little boys club.
Exactly. And anytime they, fuck me over or pass me by, I just went to this little bit of code and I just smiled. I just,
I knew what they didn't. Yeah.
Right. And you can even like suggest that in the past on like 3 separate occasions, right when her companies would like fly up, maybe she did use it to seed her company. And it was always like this news,
these
like
angel investors,
this hacker, this Trojan horse got into, anonymous, there's, these instances. And so that can even come up, like the old detectives can figure out, wasn't there something back in 99 or 2000 where there's a run on the banks because everybody thought that the Y2K bug was coming and someone stole like almost $1 billion and like, oh yeah, well the next year she opens this tech business. Yeah. Guess how much guess how much investment she made. Exact same amount that was stolen. Blah blah blah. Great setup for like a long thing, because you can even have Helen Hunt, who is blue collar, white collar, high end person, had a run in at some time with a detective. So that there's yet another level of maybe her husband died under mysterious circumstances. Right, exactly. And
case or. Yeah.
Right.
Never could quite pin it on her, but I knew there was something weird.
There's always something. And even then that could be a funny thing too, is, you thought I would kill my husband?
Yeah.
that's amateur hour. You know, it's like,
I didn't want to kill him. I wanted to own him.
Right. Exactly. It's like, I had years to work off of him. You know,
that's right.
And
I was not nearly done torturing that man.
Well, and you can have it be like he was the face of a company.
Yeah.
And then he untimely died, and it was like a big scandal and everything. It's just like, that was the worst thing that ever happened, because no one took me seriously, but they believed every word he said, you know? So there's a great dynamic to examine there, is that the detective thinks she's a murderer, and she's like, get out of here with that.
Yeah.
Like, I would bother.
You can have that scene, and then also parallel that scene with our Anna Kendrick essentially coming to Tom Holland and saying like, oh man, we dodged a bullet with that. Like, your mother had done all this stuff when they do it. And he's like, oh yeah, now I can do that. And it's just like this, like, basically that's when all the idealism, like all her idealism just goes away. It's just like, oh, you're just as bad. Like, this is whatever this thing is, you know, it's corrupting.
Everything's about, you know, he's all about what's handed to him. Yeah. And it's like, oh, somebody just handed me the keys to all the money I want. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Gone fishing. Okay. I love it.
Fishing.
I love it. I want to see it now. Coming to theaters 2025. I want to see it.
Coming to theaters 2025.
Right, so, and maybe you can make that happen, listeners, because Gone Fishing is now yours. So we are releasing that idea out into the ether. So for
Gone Fishing
Execution, it is now yours. If you think you have a way to do it, if you are really good at art, I would love to see a scene from the movie. Put Anna Kendrick in there, or cast whoever you like. I'd love to see.
At the very least, that is a dynamite name.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Like, somebody put that on there, and then give us a special thanks.
Even if you just want like Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro turn to cybercrime.
That's right. Go to Adobe Firefly and whip something up. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
I want to see it.
Perfect.
But if you don't like our casting choices and you want to see somebody else, that'd be great too. Like, or if you are inspired, I would love to hear someone had written the big speech at the end where she's
absolutely
about it too. Like, I would love to see it. So yeah, whatever you got, just link it back to us. We'd love to see it. And go forth, go fishing, see what you come back with.
Fishing.
All right. So once again, Chris, thank you so much for doing this.
Always a pleasure.
This is such a blast. I always have so much fun doing this with you, and I would never have imagined we would end up with a Helen Hunt cyber thriller with Tom Holland as a villain at the start of this. That's what makes this so much fun. So thank you very much for spending some time here at the Story Well. Well, the stories won't write themselves, so back into the world we must go. If you'd like to know more about Christopher Soucy, you can hear more of his voice on his podcast, The Most Haunted City on Earth. That, alongside my audio drama podcast, The Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society, are both available in your podcatcher of choice. Thank you for stopping by. If you're in this part of the world again, there will always be a place for you here at the Story Well. Now, go tell your story.